Before we dive in, here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
Well, howdy folks, my name is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I'm Kynan Diaz.
And we're the hosts of The Exorcist Minute, a show where we examine, extrapolate, and excavate the scariest movie of all time.
Each episode covers a single minute of William Friedkin's 1973 horror masterpiece, The Exorcist.
If you like deep dives, this show is the deepest.
Did you know the film's iconic theme song, Tubular Bells, wasn't written specifically for the movie?
Or that the 1973 audience members were throwing up and fainting in the theater before they ever got a glimpse of the demon?
Or what about all the crazy on-set mishaps, cast injuries, the director firing real guns?
Ooh. Ever wonder where Ouija boards came from or how they got their name? How about some history on the Catholic Church or the Roman rite of exorcism? Or maybe we can tempt you with some juicy demonology lore. Did you know that Pazuzu had an ex-wife? Find The Exorcist Minute on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to your shows or at theexorcistminute.com. Until next time, folks,
the power of The Exorcist compels you.
Ever wonder what bridges the gap between your favorite film genres, subgenres, and movements? CinemaScope is here to explore these connections, taking you on a thrilling odyssey through the ever-evolving art of cinema. I'm your host, Andy Nelson, and in each episode, we embark on a deep dive into the forces that sculpt the world of film. From the styles you know and love, like heist films or the French New Wave, to the ones you may not be as familiar with, like Turkish Yeşilçam or Brazilian Nordwesterns, my expert guests and I unravel the complex tapestry of storytelling, style, and innovation that defines the world of film as we unpack the myriad catalysts of change that shape these diverse styles. Whether you're a student of film, a creative professional, or simply a devoted movie enthusiast, CinemaScope is your gateway to a richer, more immersive film experience. Don't just watch movies, understand them, appreciate them, and revel in their artistry with CinemaScope. Subscribe today.
Life is for the strong, to be lived by the strong, and if needs be, taken by the strong. The weak of the world were put here to give the strong pleasure. I am strong. Why should I not use my gift? If I wish to hunt, why should I not? Those words come from the famous short story entitled The Most Dangerous Game by Richard Connell, which was published in the year of our Lord, 1924. Today's films, while not direct adaptations, are sternly influenced by this tale of a rich man who wishes to hunt the deadliest species, his fellow man. But to tame such savage cinema, one cannot just assemble a team of podcasters. No, they must be hunted. Look there, making his way through the muddy moors, a rare breed, podcastus impresarius. It's Pete Wright.
Oh no, oh no!
The air has shifted. We must be downwind because, what's that smell? It's the handsomest man in podcasting, Tommy Betts.
You'll never find me.
And look at these tracks. They can only come from a being who resides in academia. It can only be Kynan Diaz.
Don't look at me.
I have gathered you into this high hide to examine our quarry. So here we wait, sitting in the dark. Welcome to the most dangerous game.
Woohoo! We've been
Pleasure to
hunting
be
each
here.
other since 1923.
And one of us will not leave alive.
Yes, Richard Connell invented the concept of murder back in 1924 when he published this story.
Just like Al Gore invented the internet. We got it all. We've got them all here tonight.
So what are your thoughts on the story of Most Dangerous Game? We've all seen plenty of adaptations of it in our respective cinematic histories.
I love this choice for a topic because in a way, every horror movie at times is the most dangerous game, but this one is like legit hunting for sport and calling it sport for the most part, which makes it interesting.
Yeah, there's something about the obviousness of it that I find really incredible. Like we're just, you know what? We're just going to scare the crap out of each other right now. That's all we're going to do. And it's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. And that's going to be what scares you because humans are capable of horrible things. And that's the lesson of these movies, except for one, which isn't.
There's also this idea of reminding ourselves of our animal nature, which is something that we really don't like to go there. We don't like to remind ourselves of our basic bodily functions or even how weak we are, really. So when we put ourselves in the, I was going to say in the shoes of the animal, but that's not quite right because That's what separates us from the animals is shoes, I believe.
Shoes?
Yes.
That's it. That's the only difference. Shoes and we don't use our feet as hands. That's the
All right.
I'm curious, Kyle. I'm curious for you. What was it that inspired you to put these films together? Like, why did you choose this particular theme? What is it about this that scares you?
Well, I as you know, I like monster movies, and so one of these sort of fits that category, and the other ones do not. But I'm always interested in when you can bring sort of class warfare stuff into these kind of stories. I mean, I think The Purge, as it started out, works because not only is it a horror movie about people in masks being terrible to each other, but like there's actually a class thing to it of like the rich get to hide and the poor have to run around and survive. So whenever you can,
second one.
yeah, exactly. Like, and obviously, like the more films they make of it, the weaker that message gets. Now it's just been like it just becomes like competing with Scream and everything else to just be as violent as possible. But I always like when you can take a social theme or something along those lines and then merge it into whatever terror story you're doing. There's the Freddy Kruegers of the world and there's the Jason Voorhees of the world, but then there's also that thing of this at least two of them could happen. That's sort of just a little bit to the right. It's like you're not so far outside the realm of possibility where you can kind of go, yeah, I bet you somewhere this has happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. And something that comes along with the class ideas of the superior animal, right? Like even amongst people as animals, I, because of my birthright or because of my training or because of my money, am better than you. And so that's here in a lot of these movies, and especially in the original short story of I'm going to give you a leg up a little bit, right? It's not fun to just go and kill these inferior creatures. I'm going to bring you as close as I can to me and give you a head start of a couple of hours, or I'm going to give you some clues to solve, and maybe you would kill me back, but that's kind of fun for me, right? Like the closer it gets to not going right for the villain is having more fun.
Yeah, the game. I think we had talked previously on the show about Ready or Not. I think Ready or Not would fit into this sort of conversation as well. There's and say if you looked at the adaptations, like when we talked about at the end of the last episode, Kynan brought up like all these different adaptations that there have been, from The Pest all the way to like the direct adaptations of it. So there was a lot to choose from. So I didn't want to stick strictly on that thing of like adaptations of like Man Hunting Man, though that could be done. I think there's still enough films out there that if one of you would like to take all that on, you can. It was the fact that these three films all came out with a very, very close to each other, within a year of each other, and all were
really
sort of dealing with this similar idea. So it's like that's always that zeitgeist thing of like what was in the water.
Right.
All these differing filmmakers of differing levels, which we're going to talk about too. Like obviously there's some big studio money in here and there's some way indie spirit in here, and then sort of in between. But all of them had the same, and all of the executives from all these different things were like, yes, that's what we want. People being hunted.
Probably Zaslav at one point. Probably.
All right, so let's dig in then. I think I would like to start with our biggest budget one. So let's go for The Hunt from 2020, directed by Craig Zabel. I know at least two of you probably have already seen this. Kynan, had you seen this before?
No, this was new to me. Of course, I've heard it because the story about the movie, I guess, is famous even if you haven't seen the film.
Yeah.
This was actually the last movie that the film board reviewed before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I had so thoroughly convinced myself that I was on that episode and that I must have seen the movie. But I actually had to go back and look, and I was not on that film board.
Oh.
I wasn't there. And
you were at Kroger just taking all the toilet paper.
And so this was actually new to me too. So
Okay.
This was a first time watch.
All right. So before we dig into it then, who's got axes to grind?
Well, I guess my only axe, when a movie starts with shots of a text thread on a phone, I really go, oh gosh. And luckily they got out of that very quickly, but that's not my ideal way of openly a movie cinematically.
Yeah. I have some deep thoughts about text on screen and things, and I think there was a video essay I found at one point that somebody talked about the good and bad ways to do it too. But yeah, I agree. Watching the text bubbles appear, not the most exciting way to start a rip-roaring action horror thing.
It's not really an axe to grind, but when I saw this movie in the theater, it was something I had to get used to, is how simple in a way the movie is. It's really like 3 places.
Yeah.
Like right when you think the movie is about to get going, almost everyone is killed in this one bunker. It reminded me a lot of Dr. Sleep in a very weird way, where there's just one scene in the woods and everybody's gone. Except like your big bad. And that just takes time to get used to. I was expecting it to go on longer, but it's still, I really like this movie.
I really liked it too. There's something about, this movie and a class of movies like it where the reputational effect of the movie is so much stronger than the actual experience watching the movie that it sort of is in its own way. Like, I'm not sure if it's just because of how they marketed it with the clips they chose for the trailer, but I feel like I knew what the movie was going to be when I got there, and I knew the movie's worldview, and I wasn't necessarily satisfied with the twist. Like, it felt a little bit like, oh, I'm Twisters, and we're not going to mention climate change. Like, do you know? It just felt a little bit too ideologically trying to be too mid. In its ideological stance for having such extreme excuses for violence.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's, people hated the movie from all sides.
Yes.
Right? I was going to say both sides, but from everywhere you could possibly think, even from the middle. And then when you watch the movie itself, it's pretty ecumenical about who it wants to like the film and who it's trying to appeal to.
Yeah, it's pretty both sides.
Yeah,
like down the middle.
And is it weird that I watched the movie and at the end I was like, tell me something. Who did you want me to hate?
Yeah.
Like, I just hate you because you didn't tell me who to hate. Like, I just didn't. I felt like
it seems like I imagine it probably got defanged somewhere along the lines. Like, I feel
feels like it.
There's a draft of this where somebody was just like really working out some issues and was just digging it. And then by the time that you get a major studio involved, suddenly it becomes, well, maybe it could just be people are just slightly distasteful as opposed to flat out evil.
Right. There was a press release that went out that said the movie was going to be called Red State, Blue State, and then apparently the filmmakers weren't on board with that, or that's what they say afterwards. But then that's where people got riled up and like, you can't do a Red State, Blue State. Well, no, we're not doing that, but kind of we are. But then no, not really, we aren't. And trying to have your way with anybody. Yeah,
there's not really enough of a point of view to hate.
Right.
Yeah.
There's not enough here to really get riled up about.
I applaud them for making the movie that they made, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's got some fun action in it, and it's got some good fights and some good, the gory stuff is stuff that makes me cringe, and that is all great.
Yeah.
I don't know, would you say it's elevated horror?
No.
There you go.
Yeah, no, it's a game. Yeah, remembering the conversation that we had a zillion years ago when we did it for the film board, it was JJ that really pointed out the fact that I was saying, well, I understand why people are mad because it is making fun and it is pointing out the badness of certain people, the people to prey, the people that are hunted. And he said, no, it's not. He said, all of their stuff comes true. Like that one guy is like crisis actors, and we go, oh boy. And then it turns out that it is a crisis actor. That it shows someone, and it shows Ike Barinholtz in a clear mock-up of the Charlottesville riot or march, free-for-all, whatever it was. But it doesn't comment on it. You know what I mean? It's just, you can go see this movie as a red stater and be like, yep. And I don't know. And it just occurred to me that, it didn't occur to me until JJ said that, the movie does sort of go right down the middle in a very interesting way. I know my feelings of it, but in a way they're proven right by being proven wrong by being proven right. Yeah.
So the idea is that just to make sure that, because it gets a little muddy about like when and where on different things. The idea is that this was like the manor was not real, and
Correct.
then they made a joke about it, and then people thought it was real, so they decided to make it real, right?
Because they all got fired.
Yeah.
So she got fired, and so they decided to make it. Yeah, because
So we're
Manor
seeing
is
the first time they've done this.
Right. Yeah, this
Right.
is the first annual Manor Gate,
Okay.
right? The real one, yeah.
Okay.
And that is some interesting satire about the manor, and Hilary Swank's character Athena is like, it's not a manor, it's a 3-bedroom house. And then when they recreate the manor in Croatia and Crystal shows up there, to her, from Mississippi, a veteran, a working, it is a manor. And so that's like the one little bit of class satire at all, about Athena being so removed that she can't recognize that she lives in a mansion, even if it only has 3 rooms in it.
Right.
Yeah. One of my favorite scenes is in the convenience store, where you have the incredibly socially aware couple, like probably ex-hippies,
Right.
and then flat out just murdering these people, and then like talking about their
How white people are the worst.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Those little bits are actually, they're brilliant. Like that's where the
every
movie
once in a
is.
while you get that little crackle of
Yeah.
something like, ooh, there was really something here at some point.
Yeah. I could have spent more time in the convenience store.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great set piece.
It feels like it makes more fun of liberals to their faces than it does non-liberals.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love the need for the hunters. They can't just die. They have to know why they're dying.
Yes.
They have to know, why do you own all these guns? Like there's so much like tortured logic that needs to go into it. So they're justifying their own hunt, which is interesting.
I think that a movie like this is sort of carried on the back of its star. And I think in this, the Betty Gilpin is phenomenal. Like, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing she can't do. And I think that this movie only works because she works. Having seen her in Glow, and so too, you've seen one side, and she's done. I'm watching Elementary right now, and she shows up in Elementary at that point. And she's all around me. But I love an action type character that's just definitive. She just makes decisions and makes things happen. She doesn't even tell anybody what she's doing. She just goes for it. That's so rare, because a lot of times it's like there's posing and there's all this like monster stuff, but she just decides what she's going to do and she does it. And she figures out that the couple is something wrong with them and just instantly goes for it. Like, it doesn't like, haha, I'm on to you. Like, nope.
It's so interesting because that part, I think they sufficiently sort of degendered the part, right? And I think it works very, very well. The fact that it could have been played by a male presenting figure or a female presenting figure works really well for the part. And I think it subverts so many of our expectations about what an action-y woman is in these movies, that it doesn't become, it's not like, it's a special kind of revenge fantasy that we get to watch, right? That it's not a rape revenge fantasy. It's not a final girl
kids were killed
cheerleader.
Yeah.
Right. It's just it's just like, these are people doing bad things and I'm going to right a wrong. And there's something that's kind of perfect, that they didn't overcomplicate it. And I want to say that word again, because I'll be coming back to it on another movie. That's another spoiler.
Yes. Yeah. I know exactly where you're going with that one. It's nice to see, like I've seen in some of these movies, a character actor showcase. Like, you get some people who just show up. They get to have maybe one scene or two. They make a mark and then they're out. I love that. Like, we don't get to see a lot of those anymore. Usually you sort of had all the energy and money has been sucked up by a star,
Right?
And so you have all the left are scraps. So you get the people who are just earning their SAG cards for the first time. But here we get to have some names, some people who actually have names that all of a sudden get, like, you think, oh, like Ike Barinholtz, he's been on, the Minnie Kaling show and all this other stuff. And then boom, he's gone.
Right. Yeah. Right. So fast.
I really do like Justin Hartley as sort of the faux hero. Yes. Now he's like the biggest star on network TV with
CBS.
Tracker.
Yeah.
But I like that fake out. I like it when I see it coming, so I'm in on it. I don't like it when I don't see it coming, and then I feel so in this one, I'm like, okay, I like this, and this is going well, and it does make a claim that he could be an action star. Now he is an action star. So
So comes from the mind of Damon Lindelof, along with a couple of other people. So Damon Lindelof is also one of my favorite writers. I think he has been maligned by a lot of people, but he perseveres and he's out there. He sort of took the hits from Lost and came back with Leftovers, and took the hits from that and came back with Watchmen. And in the time, then he puts this out, and it just sort of went away. That's what I think is interesting about the reception of this, is that when it was coming out, it was bubbling of like, this is going to be really controversial. Everybody's getting stirred up. And then COVID happened and everyone forgot about it. It just sort of like, no one talks about this movie. Like, no one makes a deal of it or adds it on any lists of even good or bad. It just disappeared.
Yeah, it was going to be like the do the right thing of its generation, of like, oh, this is going to really start something and be crazy out there, and then it didn't quite happen. But it is a very serviceable action film. I mean, when it's really working, the fight scene at the end between Hilary Swank and Betty Gilpin is super, super strong.
Yeah.
It is affecting. It is oogie. You go, oh, gross. Oh, gross. It's funny without being like, oh, that's that they're doing that for us now. There's a moment where Hilary Swank is like, let's not throw each other through any more glass. Like we just make a pact that's funny but feels still grounded within the reality there. And that's just some amazing choreography. Where I think some of the other ones are too quick to really become set pieces necessarily, right? But this extended one is really, really fun at the end.
Yeah, I do like a fight scene that stops to go for rounds. Okay, that was round one.
All right, that was round one.
And I liked how the weapons that were used in the kitchen scene are all high privilege cutlery, gadgets and stuff, that it's even making a comment on that.
Yeah.
That no one picks up a wooden spoon or a spatula. It's all like special fire things and gross bougie, stuff you would get at Restoration Hardware, which I think is cool.
Okay. Put away my list for Restoration. It is interesting to watch how he paces action. I'm curious how you guys think of how he paces action, especially because, we've gotten to see how he paces action over a series in Watchmen. To that point, we've gotten to see crazy action in World War Z, right? We've even Star Trek Into Darkness, right? Like there's some interesting things the way he paces the writing of his action, and this movie, I mean, it starts pretty hot, right? We don't get a lot of like sitting around at the breakfast table time with the kids. Before we're just injected into the world of this thing. And it doesn't really let up. Like, I find it a really propulsive watch.
I think it actually would have been better if it had been done cheaper.
Maybe.
Like, this is one of the few things where I feel like they put a bunch of money to, like, I love a mid-budget film. I'm on a big thing of watching these stuff from the 90s that were like the $40-50 million budget stuff, which we don't really get anymore. But I feel like it almost would have been better if this had been down and dirty.
Because it feels a little too slick, or
it feels a little too almost Hollywood. Like it's just smoothed down and polished enough that it doesn't give you that weird grunge you get in some of the sort of the old boy sort of darker action revenge things.
Yeah, no, there's no grit in the thing at all. There's no grit for as nasty as people are to each other. Yeah, this is a pristine film.
But you essentially have like, oh, we're losing a third of the cast at a time, right? So that is a little bit different from a lot of the other hunting people's story, right? This is sort of tipping over into Hunger Games territory, I suppose, where Battle Royale, we're sort of losing whole groups of people. So I do appreciate it when it's more one-on-one and it is more of Crystal hunting or being hunted. I really like that aspect of it, that kind of captures the feeling of the short story, which is really terrifying of just like, geez, if I make the wrong move here, I'll make a noise and that'll be it, any moment. So the other parts where life is a little bit cheaper just don't fit into the most dangerous game category as much for me.
I do think, though, that celebration of like it does get to the one-on-one kind of efficiently, right? They really do clean up the cast for economy of performers really fast in this movie.
Really
that is one of the great jokes of the movie is there's only really one person in this movie. Right. It starts with like 40.
Right.
Another title for this movie could be Hard Out. Like, they got to set and was like, you have to leave when? Oh my God. Get everybody in the bunker. Get everybody in the bunker.
Right. We have Emma Roberts. That's expensive.
Just
Get
for one
her
day.
off.
Just one day.
Get her
One day.
out of here.
Yeah. There's just a guy. Okay, you're in charge of screaming picture wrap on. That's all you do today. That's all you're going to do it about every 13 minutes.
Yeah, I do like the zigs and the zags. Like, I mean, you could have had the whole thing, like you were talking about. Hunger Games is a good or Battle Royale, both good representative of that. You could have had all in sort of the play area, the thing, but they immediately go out of it, and then after that they're on the train, and like all of a sudden we're like, oh, we're off the map, like we're out, and the movie sort of felt like that too, where you sort of didn't know. You spent that whole time going, is this part of it? Like, is this like you sort of didn't know like how much of they'd actually, is it a big enough operation they actually had hired all these people to be an army and had a train, like all this stuff you don't really know, which is nice in something like this, where it can be a little bit by the numbers.
Well, and it's just written so smartly that the entire time I'm watching this, it's like every time they reveal a new little fact about what these idiots have done to build this compound in Croatia, like it's just, I can't stop being shocked by what they've done with their privilege. And that's really a pitch perfect kind of twist on this story. The fact that I am shocked by privilege in this way is really wonderful. Like I'm a booster for the movie overall in that angle.
Yeah, and maybe my favorite action beat of the whole thing is her slow turn to get herself in position to kick the guy in the head who's driving the car. Like, she has made the decision, and now she's just working out the angles.
Yep.
And
he doesn't
look
see
on her
it,
face.
and
I'm
it's
like,
perfect.
you're about to get my boots.
Because he's starting to do the justification thing, right? He's
Yeah,
asking her over and over again, but why you? But why you? And she's like, this is not what someone would ask. Yeah.
So, all right. Any final thoughts on the hunt before we move on to our next quarry?
I like it. It was fun to go back and revisit. I like this.
I like it. It's fun to not lie to people when I say, I think I saw that.
Yeah. That's a real new adventure for you.
Yeah.
All right. So let's keep the hunt going, and let's go across the pond and let's get duked.
I am so happy that you put this movie on my radar. I'd never heard of it, and I thought it was hysterical. I thought it was so funny and then clever, and then I thought I had it, and it juked me and duked me. I really enjoyed it. I didn't think it was very scary, but I didn't care because I think it's so enjoyable. I think it's brilliantly acted. There's one axe to grind.
Oh, okay.
Only I wish that they didn't put Eddie Izzard's name in the opening credits, because then it would have given me a second to think, what if it was the teacher?
Yes.
That was hunted, because the movie lets you think that for a second, but you know from get-go that you're waiting for Eddie Izzard to show up. That's the only thing. What a minor quibble. Yeah.
Well, my axe to grind is with the title, which is Get Duked, which is fine. But originally it was titled Boys in the Wood, which is a much better title.
That is a dominating title. What are they doing?
I don't know. Maybe someone's like, well, it's the Highlands. It's not the wood. I don't know, whatever. But Boys in the Wood. Much better.
Much better. I don't have any axes to grind. I was on the verge of having an axe to grind at the end of this movie, and it completely redeemed itself. Like before I even finished writing the axe, it was over. My axe was null and void. I really enjoyed my time with this movie.
That gives me so much pleasure. This was my linchpin.
It's not scary. It's
not scary. No.
Yeah, it's my level of scary, so I'm happy with it.
But gory,
gory,
like sort of once you get to that, there's sort of a certain level you get to. I even thought the hunt, because technically could be classified as an action movie, but there's a certain amount of spraying bodily fluids and gore and stuff too that like, okay, we've crossed over. Like there's probably a gallon meter somewhere. This was my linchpin. This was like the one that on this one I was like, oh, I want to build something around this because I so enjoyed this. I love a down and dirty, sort of like an action comedy horror. Like they 100% had a story they wanted to tell and wanted to tell it in their own way. I can't say enough good things about it. It's like it has just a different rhythm than all of the other ones. Even like other, sort of idiots lost in the woods wandering around kind of stuff. It still has its own sort of feel to it.
You could
Well-
see the easier choices that it could have made with like the
Yes.
kids, not Ian, but the other two dummies.
Yeah.
Like there were so many times when it would be like, oh, I think I know when the joke is coming. And then it takes a left instead of a right. And that's thrilling. I love that so much. And then just like even big physical comedy when they're like, okay, we have to keep an eye open. Now there's detail and the bus or the car is like rolling down.
That's right.
Like that's a rough to time. That's hard. And it was
Yeah.
perfectly done. I loved it. It's so funny.
I was enchanted. But I mean, all of the dummies were fantastic. Like all of their performances were just wonderful. But DJ Beetroot,
Yes.
I mean, I was just overjoyed every time he was struggling with his DJ identity. I thought it was just perfect. And I don't know if somebody from this part of the world would see this movie and say like, well, that's Monday morning for me. Like, let's go for a pint. That's how they talk. And, maybe it's because so much of this movie is made special because it's culturally foreign to me just enough that I get the tingles. My scalp kind of tingles when I hear them all talking to each other and how they are. I love British stuff. And and so this movie in particular, like when the old people start coming together and talking about why they hate youth so much and they have to keep order. I just found myself really enchanted by this movie. I did not see it coming. Hit me sideways.
Right. It's a simple story of these four boys, and all of that's really strong. And then on top of it is this visual style and this audio style that's so energetic and fun and youthful. I think you could easily make a movie that's like, oh, we value the values of youth, but then not show it in the filmmaking. And that's not this one. This is so exuberant. And it starts with this Duke at Edinburgh training video that then goes. I watched that a couple times after I had seen the film. It's just so fun. So like you could tell. I know it sounds cliche sometimes, but sometimes you could feel like the fun of the filmmakers behind it as they're making it. And this is one of those.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good point. I want to like the Boys in the Wood title. It just reminds me. One of my notes was they made wide open highlands scary.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do. Like I didn't feel like I was going to be threatened by wide open green space that they're hiking across. And they made this terrain frightening in a special way. And I think to your point about camera, just the way they are able to capture a dominatingly wide angle with a teeny tiny threat in the distance and still make me feel scared for these boys was great. That was just great. It's really skillful.
It could have easily been old versus young. Like it could have easily been like they're talking about like, oh, I hate the kids, so I'm here to kill the kids. Like I want to kill kids because kids are terrible. But then you have this amazing subplot that I never saw coming of DJ Beetroot finds his audience.
Right.
Like
oh my
he
God.
gives that CD, and I thought like he gives the CD to the guy, and I thought, oh, that's funny. And then later on, you see the guy listening to the CD in his tractor, and I'm like, oh, that's okay. So that's like the tag on the end of the like that's the. I was like, okay, and then nope, like that's a major plot, but it comes back, and all of these sort of middle-aged to old people are really into DJ Beetroot, and they embrace these kids and like have this. You know, they're on their side, so it becomes a whole different thing of there's a lot more similarity between like the underprivileged youth, I guess, you know, and the struggling farmer. Like there's a lot of class stuff you could get into right there, because then it's the rich people who are being terrible to all of them.
Right.
Well, especially, it demonstrating in the movie where there is sort of a united front where the Venn diagram crosses is in eating the
rabbit droppings.
Psychedelic rabbit droppings. That, first of all, it's a delightful experience watching that music video in particular, and knowing that was going to play in later as their heads get really large. The effect worked very well for me. I loved the visual effects, and the fact that this is where adults and kids see eye to eye. Right, by way of DJ Beetroot, we get to see a sort of communion together, a cultural communion, and I think that was really lovely.
and across geography, right? Because we're busing these boys in from the city, yeah, right, out into the highlands, and it's not where they would normally want to go, but they find their people out there.
Yeah, and then the cops being wildly ineffective and inefficient, but continually just spiral themselves up out of control.
Oh,
They are like Wallace and Gromit characters, right? Like they are like Aardman
yes.
characters, and somehow they could pull that off. Where it's like, oh gosh, you're claymation cops here, and you still exist in there, and by the end of it, when they kind of solve the mystery or don't, that is just so charming of them to bungle their way through it, and I don't know, I could see it going wrong, and me go, oh gosh, come on, everything's so simple and tied up so easily, but I just smiled my entire way through all of Act 3, just like, oh, this is so charming, and it's so in control of itself. Yeah, it's not like shooting out in the dark and struggling to make this work.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly when it was, because I saw this movie a long time ago before we had to reschedule. My bad. But I remember at one point distinctly feeling, oh no, it is spinning out of control. Like not out of control, but like it's spread itself too thin. And we've got people all like this. And I was like, boy, it was really fun and controlled while it lasted. Again, surprised by they're a couple steps ahead of me. It is such a tight, perfectly written story at points, which was really cool.
Well, and that becomes the joke for me. And that's where the movie redeemed itself at the very end, is they're having that conversation between the adults and the youth, and they're starting to roll up their sleeves in order to reveal their ideological tattoos that go all the way up their arms. And it's so heavy handed. And then they're all crushed by the ambulance. And I was moved. I thought that was just the right choice, the right, perfect choice at that moment. Timing was everything.
Yeah, I would say I would put this in like sort of the Edgar Wright school, where
very
it's like
100%.
everything
100%.
is like they have it down to like the frame of like this is where it's perfect, it's precision, which it didn't look like when you sort of look at just a bunch of boys wandering around in the Highlands. You didn't think that this would be this tightly edited of a movie, but it really is.
No, when you first suggested it, like, we're going to watch Get Duked, I was like, is this a prank show? What are we doing? Is Kyle mad at us? And then it
I mean, just look at Ninian Duff. When you look at his other stuff, like he's a music video director. Like he comes from music, and you can just feel that in this thing. Like it's not quite Edgar. It's not quite, Baby Driver level. Right. Not quite that precise, but you can tell this is his journey. He's on a path. And it's a joy to watch that the way this puzzle comes together visually. Also really fun to see Kate Dickie in this movie as the Sergeant Morag, because I'm, where's the last time I saw her? I saw her in Loki. I saw her in what was that? She did that big movie. What was the big movie? The Northman. She did the Northman. She's a real face right now.
Yeah. But mostly in serious things, The Witch and Prometheus.
The Witch.
Yeah, and having these terrible things happen to her. So, that deadpan is really paying off here.
For sure. Boy,
she's talking about ridiculous things,
She played like the same character. You just take her out of a very serious, take her out of The Witch and put her in this movie, play the same character. It's funny.
That's the mark of talent.
That's the science of movies.
It works. Yep. Yeah. So I really hope that I hope it's us that does it, but I hope that this movie actually gets a lot more, because it was, once again, the timing. It was sort of making its way through the circuit, doing all the film festivals, and then there was no circuit, and so that just now has sort of disappeared into the back catalog of Amazon Prime.
I was sending people the links to it, right after. I was like, like not just, hey, look at this movie. I was sending them the Amazon link. This right now.
What's our take on Eddie Izzard, just as a performance in this thing?
It is so interesting, right? So Eddie Izzard is always like played with gender. Right now, Eddie goes by Eddie or Susie, and is using she/her pronouns, right? And and it's like watching her knowing her from her stand-up way back when she was out there like, I'm a transvestite, and like this is like daring people to be weirded out by her gender presentation, right? This is the most like masculine role I've ever seen Eddie Izzard in, and it's so much fun. I think like her like I'm going to be a real man now, and that's going to be scary as hell, right?
Yeah.
So funny, but also so manly um like it doesn't hurt that there's these masks that they have on their faces that are
Right.
not really functioning as masks. I don't know what they're trying to do. They're not covering anything up. It's just like you're wearing a flap of skin on your face. Yeah. Yeah,
Like
I think it's great.
20s Halloween costume.
Yeah. I did not know about the Susie Susie Izzard. That's
Yeah,
what I did not know
the-
that. She's
yeah,
that's
she
really
says
goes by
you can-
both.
Yeah, she said, you
Okay.
can call me anything, basically, right?
Okay.
It's too late to not be Eddie Izzard, I think is what she was saying.
Yeah.
Well, I think what she's
Mm.
like, you're right. This is all I could think back to was, what was it, Ocean's 13, the Las
Mhm.
Vegas one,
Mhm.
Yeah.
where she was kind of the foil, and that was also a surprising, like, we could have had the exact same conversation. Like, that's a
Right.
surprisingly masculine part, and it was really, I mean, it was fun. It was fun to see them in this movie,
Right.
playing this part,
Yeah.
and doing it so believably.
Yeah, and
She
is
does posh really
Yeah,
well.
really well. That's
like
so
you
true.
can imagine she's like thinking of somebody in specific, right?
Yes.
Like has been
Oh, yeah.
terrible to her. And that's the great surprise to me. Like again, like constantly surprising is then okay, well, this is the Duke of Edinburgh character, and then this Queen shows up. Queen Elizabeth character shows up. And I was like, I can't believe they would do that. Like that's so shocking that they have the prince and the queen trying to kill you. I was like, yeah, go you all, because this is I don't think you're allowed to do that.
Well, doesn't it fall into a long, like hundreds of
Yeah, I
years
guess
history
so.
of lampooning royalty
I guess
in
so, yeah.
Britain? I think that just worked perfectly. It felt like I was watching a traveling minstrel show. Like, it was puppets
right,
that were stabbing each other. It was just great.
Right. And at the end, when she's like, may I have my sword back, please, so I can kill you with it.
Manners.
Yeah,
So
manners,
good.
always manners.
Okay, I'm so glad that you all enjoyed Get Dukes. I hope
Very much.
listeners did as well.
Delightful, yes.
All right, let's move on to our last of our three, and that's Run, Sweetheart, Run. It's another one of those Netflix original movies that they, put a bunch of money and time into, and they give it to them and then completely abandon it. The Netflix model. We'll let you do whatever you want, but we're only going to talk about it for a month. So this is another one that's I feel like was lost in the shuffle, and it was one of those trailers I had found I was going to talk about on Saturday Matinee when we were doing that back in the time, and it just never really got into the rotation and stuff too. But as like from the trailer, I was like, yep, this is going to be my kind of movie.
Did it stay your kind of movie?
We'll get to the end when we get to the end. But let's talk. We'll save that axe for the end. But what other axes?
That's my axe.
Okay,
that is principally my axe.
Yeah.
But I will say, just to counter my axe, I thought Ella Balinska was fantastic. So
Fantastic.
now you can do your axes.
Yeah, that is a fantastic performance.
Yeah.
I know, like, at some points of this movie, I'm like, we're making her suffer too much. Like, this is a little cruel to this character and this actor, but she's showing all sorts of really cool sides to it. Like, she's a great action star, and then I don't know if Scream Queen is appropriate for a movie like this, because it's more like suffering, like it's like Suffering Queen, the trauma
Scream
queen.
Queens do.
Yeah, she's really good at that. Yeah.
It's interesting now. This is not an axe to grind. This is just a topic. My axe is at the end.
We'll get there.
Is for all the suffering and an endurance. This movie's like a marathon kind of a movie,
Yes.
kind of a. But unlike the aforementioned Ready or Not by Radio Silence, this movie, while it shows a lot of suffering, it also refuses to be voyeuristic when it's up close and personal. With the amount of times that the antagonist breaks the fourth wall and says, no, you're not allowed to watch this part, I thought it was fascinating. That was really interesting. I mean, the movie had me already when they're going up to the house, and then he stops us and says, this is not for you. And then we hear whatever's going on inside. Same with the back alley. Yep. Whenever there's like, it's just a man beating a woman, the film refuses to show us that. And I think that's a really strong. Who directed this movie?
Shayna Feist.
So it is a female.
Yeah, it's a woman. She's a very, very strong director. She does not do horror normally. She does like Country Strong and
I know
The
Country Strong.
Greatest with Carey Mulligan. Carey Mulligan's first big movie, like Endless Love, the remake. This is not her normal cup of tea. Yeah.
Well, it felt like I was going to guess why I asked it as I was going to, at risk of gendering something. It felt like a choice that a female director would make.
Yeah.
Is we're here for part of this, but not this. We're not here to watch you wallow in a woman being beaten in camera. Yes, everything else, we're going to put this woman through the ringer, but that's really brave. I mean, the things that Samara Weaving goes through in Ready or Not is legion. I mean, you're there for all of it. So I thought that alone made this movie super interesting, and I was really glad to see it.
Well, that is my axe to grind, is the breaking the fourth wall. But as I was watching it, and I was like, I don't like this at all. I don't like the pop-ups with the like run, and the title cards. But I was like, that's probably somebody else's favorite part of this movie. As I was watching, I was like,
strong choice.
Yeah, that's just not for me.
bold,
but yeah, that's probably very popular.
It is another movie. So we talking about, for example, Eddie Izzard, or in the case of Betty Gilpin in The Hunt, being sort of degendered, right, in that role. This movie doesn't work without sex, right? It doesn't play, because we're gonna shine a spotlight on the fact that she is being hunted because she has her period, because she is a woman. She is in the position of a victim, and we're going to look at that, and that's going to be the principal reason. Time and again, you're going to see it again and again and again, her living her life as a woman. And that is the thing that causes her to be a victim. And I thought that was extraordinary choice. And it was perfectly sort of uncomfortable and disquieting. And that plus, and I'm the anti-Kynan too. That the way she just dominated the camera by having him control the fourth wall so that we fixate on the right stuff. I don't want you to fixate on this violence, because this isn't explicitly going to be a rape revenge movie. That's not explicitly what this is going to. This is going to be something else. You're not going to know what it is yet, but you're eventually going to find out. I was on board with this movie. I mean, in the bag until.
What's the
tried to become every movie, all the movies.
Damn it, this movie.
We'll get to until. We're not quite there. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to bring up here, that it actually is a through line through all of these things, that I think is done to a heightened degree in this one, is one of the things I really like about Most Dangerous Game movies is the what would you do and how fast can you think of it. So one of the things, as opposed to a lot of like the home invasion stuff too, and monster stuff too, there's that thing of you have to figure this out as you're going. So I think it like engages a different part of your brain. Like it gets into that survival instinct thing of like, okay, she decided to go down there. Why wouldn't she go here? Why would she go there? Like it starts activating that different part of like, what choices would you make? And then watching the choices that they make. The other ones have it a little bit, but this one is directly like, he's coming for you. If you stay in any place too long, he's going to come. And no matter where she goes, people help her, which is actually another thing that's kind of amazing. Like there's this story could have easily been told if it had been made, I say, in the 90s. Everywhere she go, everyone would have locked their door. They would have slammed the door. They would have been like, "You're on your own," and that would have been a story. But everyone that she meets tries to help her in some way, shape, or form. Some in massive degrees, and some in minor degrees. But it still doesn't help.
Buddy, like the woman that she yells up at the window at the very beginning, and she turns off.
Well, I mean, it's still Los Angeles. I mean, not every place.
But it seemed pointed that certain people didn't.
Yeah,
And
like the cab
did,
driver.
But why? So why was it? What my read on it was that they had been at some point peripherally victimized by this guy. Like they already knew the story, or they knew the lore, And that's I didn't feel like it was a cultural thing. I felt like it was the fairy tale part. Like this is the part where the people who aren't going to help you are the people who know the truth, and you have to find your way through the woods.
And there's the side of good and the side of bad. Cab driver being the side of good. Yeah, because the bad people are paying, what is it called, tithe.
Right.
That is that they're a part of this ritual.
And look at Clark Gregg's character and his wife. Like those, those are both ways. They, she ends up kind of being able to make the right decision and sort of give some clues, be our Book of the Vampire for a little bit.
Yeah.
And Clark Gregg is he's the worst, which broke my heart to see that.
I'd say, friend of the show, Clark Gregg.
Friend of the show, Clark Gregg.
He can do that. That's the thing. One of the things that makes him great is like he's incredibly charming, and he also has that other thing that he can turn on that he doesn't get to use very often.
But that is really good casting. You pull up Clark Gregg and Betsy Brandt, and you're like, well, she's gonna turn her out, and he's gonna take her in, and they're like, oh, silly me.
Yeah, nice twist.
Okay, speaking of twists, then. All right, let's get to it. You've been having those axes sharpened this whole time. So Pete, you want to start off? Then we find out
I do.
What is going on.
This movie, Kyle.
Really?
I hated it so much.
I still like this movie.
Do you really?
Yes.
Right, hold on. Pete, speak your piece.
There are monsters in this movie. There's an actual devil monster in this movie. And this movie was, I thought that this movie had so nailed the setup to the cultural, the societal challenges of living as a woman in the world and how and the things and doing it in the context of this kind of a horror experience so perfectly that I felt like the end of the movie making the bad guy an actual monster that scares everybody, that would scare anybody, and make this a battle between good and evil, what neutered the experience of the movie for me. Completely neutered it. It felt like the movie wanted to be what was it, Prophecy, with Christopher Walken, and like it wanted to be a good versus evil angel devil movie, and it forgot to set it up early enough. And so it became that movie on a hard left turn, and I was moved not in the right direction.
Okay. What about you, Kynan?
Well, I will tell you. So I have had way in my past. I'm not trying to darken the podcast very much, but I had a toxic relationship, and then I had a boyfriend who was a stalker and that kind of thing. And I have had nightmares about that are very similar to the beginning of this movie of like, hey, this man is here and no one is helping me. That the second half, I think, is Peter saying, or I guess the last 40 minutes of it, I've never had that nightmare of like, a demon is after me, right? This devil is after me, etc. So the first part of it is really effective, and I think really, unfortunately unique, right? Because even despite a lot of people out there having experiences like that, right? The first part of it I haven't seen in any other movie, right? Mm-hmm. The other part, it became a little bit too intellectual and too non-specific for me, I guess. Yeah,
because the first part was brave.
Yeah,
the first part was courageous filmmaking,
courageous,
and the second part
yeah,
was every other monster movie.
Yeah, so I don't think I liked it enough. Like Pete feels betrayed.
I
don't think I was in that direction. Yeah, but I certainly prefer the first hour of the movie or so to the lore part. Yeah.
Okay, before we, Tommy, you're on deck, but before we get into that part, would it have worked for you if it had been a different monster, or would it work for you if it was just a guy?
I think boyfriends, abusive boyfriends or abusive parents or what have you, like that's enough. I think that's a movie. Yeah, Pete's like nodding his head. Like human beings.
I can't make it stop.
Pete's breaking his headphones and his microphone. His whole studio's coming down. Yeah. I think that would be enough. And that would be such a crazy movie. That would be something that maybe I would go out and tell people about, like I would with Get Duked, right? But the ending makes it not as crazy. It's not as audacious. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's also wealth too, right? It's like, this is a movie that shows the constraints between not just crazy male female relationships, but also, a guy who is, it's another class movie, right? We definitely get a class movie in here. And that was enough. I'm with Kynan and I are best friends.
The second part feels like it's based on a graphic novel that I didn't remember. You know what I mean? Like, that story. The first part is something I've never seen before.
Okay, Tommy.
Yeah, I'm somewhere in the middle because I do find something interesting about, I mean, he is, before he becomes a monster, he is an impossible figure. He's able to trail her from blood. He's able to show up while she's in the cab. He keeps showing up, maybe on the route. Like, he's impossibly fast.
He can walk into the jail cell.
He walks into a jail cell because he knows everybody.
Yeah.
There is something that I kind of dig of, instead of just having it be a boyfriend, instead of it just having be a man, that the fear, I think this movie is a furious movie. This movie is pissed at society. It reminds me of The Substance, which I also just saw recently. It is a film screaming in the darkness because of the darkness, and to raise up male toxicity and grossness, being in this situation and making it literally monstrous. That's what it feels like. It feels like you are a creature being hunted and there's no way to get away. Everyone is against you. The society is against you. The system is against you. And it becomes almost like a mythical kind of fear that you have to then, I mean, with the idea of you will no longer be hunting women and stuff, that's a little interesting. Maybe I didn't need some of that, but I really love that shot in the church when he shows his true self and we're just on her, seeing her respond. That's sort of, I bet that's what it feels like. I have not been in a situation like that, but I bet it feels like you're being hunted by a Jason Voorhees that just will not stop, that will not go away. And society is not on your side. So I'm a little more forgiving about that, about making it mythical, because there already was, as Pete said, fairy tale elements to the story, that maybe that's the best way to make someone like me, who has been privileged not to be in a situation like this, know what it really feels like. The police cannot help you. The church cannot help you. Your fellow man cannot help you. You have to find allies, and that's the best you can do.
Yeah, I do always like Sharia Dashalu, who's playing Dina here. Like, I think she's
if
wonderfully,
you have to have exposition, man.
have it in that voice and give her some nice gold jewelry all over. Yeah. Yeah, she's just wonderful. But yeah, I guess I don't care for the solutions part of the ending, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, I could hear everything that Tommy's saying about why that's frightening and why that works, but then you're gonna go and kick its ass. I don't know about that. Like,
sure,
you're gonna trick it in a Hall of Mirrors thing or something like that. I'm not sure.
Well, that I think is a really great point. And I think if I'm going to even boil it down further than that, let's say we keep the mythical part. It's the fact that we got the Sharia Agdashalu character, right? That it sucks away the independence of this woman going through this horrible thing in this relationship. I just hated that there is a cabal, that now it's like, oh, okay, I get it. She's Buffy too. Okay. Like, now we need a Scooby Gang. Like, I just let her figure it out. She was on the way to figure it out. And I had already, so as long as I'm armchairing, let me just finish. I had already in my head worked out, like, the reason he's impossible is because all the people who said no, who know about him, are enabling him to create a society that is out to get her, right? Like, she cannot possibly succeed because maybe, I don't know, there are people driving him around all over the place. Like, his power is so great, just his, like, the power of his alpha white maledom is so strong that he has become evil. And I loved that movie. As soon as he became, mythological, it lost the weight of the thing it was trying to tell me, the thing it was trying to show.
All right, so I'm going to spoil an older movie. So M. Night Shyamalan's The Village.
Oh, okay. All right.
I seen that.
That movie, it was sort of like seen as the beginning of the fall of M. Night Shyamalan, and because everybody went in and they're like, that was the twist, that was it. It was like, it turns out that instead of it being set in the past, it was actually set in the present, and these people had set up a society inside this preserve to make everyone in the village think that they were stuck in the past. And people came out of it and were pissed off because like that was but for me, I really enjoyed that movie because the twist wasn't the point, because the main character of that movie never learns about the twist. She's continuing on with her life. Her destiny, her challenge, her quest is pure. Like, she goes out as a blind woman, goes out into the world, gets the thing, brings it back, saves the guy. Her life is exactly this. Like, has done the heroic thing. She did something that didn't have it. The twist had nothing to do with it. She just continues on. And I feel the same way with this movie, because by the time they get to the element at the end, and it's like angels and demon stuff too, she couldn't care less. I like the way they treat this, because they don't. It's not like this. Oh, now I have the thing. She's just like, fine, like. Sure, what I got to do? Like, I mean,
because she's already so broken by
she's exactly. So it didn't. So none of that mattered to me, because it didn't matter to her. She was like, okay, like I wanted to stab this guy, I wanted to shoot this guy. Now I got the sunlight. Sure, great, let's do it. Like, she absolutely did not care about the mythology of it, and so therefore I did not care about the mythology of it. Me, who loves monster movies and loves mythology and the rules and stuff too, but because I was so invested in her stuff, because she didn't care, I didn't care either, and I was just like happy that she beat the monster. So I mean, yeah, that was my take on it.
Yeah, and I mean, I recognize that as the one shouting from the rooftops that movie should, go screw itself. I recognize that this is very much a, oh my God, you got chocolate in my peanut butter kind of a conversation.
and I've had many movies, unravel in the last reel. Yeah. So I get that feeling too, of like, oh, I wanted to love you so much, and then at the end, you just completely fell apart on me.
I think you are saying so much. Like, this was a movie that had an awesome perspective that I hadn't seen before.
Yeah, so the spell worked on me.
New. Yeah,
when I got to the end, I was still enraptured by it too. And to Keenan's point too, all the stuff you didn't like is what I liked. I like the fourth wall breaking. I love the text on screen. Like, I'm on board for this whole thing. Yeah. I didn't love this as much as I didn't get duped, but it was a real surprise to me how I thought how well it held together. So
I love the female perspective in the movie. As a podcast with four dudes, have they done that before? As a podcast, but like to take us through, okay, I've got a blind date and I start my period. Oh, damn it, and I can't find a tampon. Like, even just those things, the movie does really, really well of just like forcing me, as a 40-year-old man, to think about what that's like to go through that. And then we have a horror movie on top of that. I thought that was, if that is the most challenging, fresh thing the movie can do, is like make us empathize with the woman for being on her period, and not that there's ever a convenient time, but being on an inconvenient time, like that is a mitzvah this movie has done, I think.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think that's it's again, it's courageous, it's bold.
Yeah,
to do
and
that.
It does not need a sequel.
No.
Like, this was it.
Nope.
Like, self-contained.
Yep.
One and done. Please.
With all of the movies, it's interesting because the Most Dangerous Game is a short story. I mean, yes. It feels expansive. If people can remember it as a novel, because it's so you're in with that character so deep psychologically. And all the three that you've picked here, Kyle, are very short movies, and they're very much like, let's start and we're not going to finish until I'm dead or they're dead, So this is the longest of them at 107 minutes, and the other two are less than 90 minutes. And I wonder if there's something about the genre in that respect of it, like, it needs to be quick and contained and like have the momentum to it.
Yeah, it needs to not overstay its welcome, because other than that, it becomes excessive. Of like, all right, how many other near death situations is this person getting out of?
Right. How much does it really have to say, too?
Yeah.
Like, for my money, of the three movies, the one that is, speaking from the perspective of horror movies, the one that is scariest is The Hunt, because it offers the opportunity for me to spin off into my ideological horror, which is, there are people on pick a side here who hate so much that they will take up arms against my side, whatever my side is, right? And that, I find, the sort of cultural realism that underpins that movie is, I think, the most compelling as from the point of being scared in these movies. I didn't find myself, like, there were some Get Duped had some awesome things going, but that's mostly a comedy. And I felt like the sort of the empathetic vibe of Run Sweetheart Run, it was great. It was that propulsive sort of chase horror. And I still found myself most sort of attracted to The Hunt from the perspective of, I know how to get scared on this concept.
It's an interesting question, when I'm teaching like undergraduates and we're trying to define genre. Oftentimes we go to horror, like it's one of the ones that obviously the young people like it, so it's easy to go to. But like the idea of, well, can horror be with guns? I mean, like typically we associate like horror, knives and strangulation and blunt objects, etc. And so I've been a little bit skeptical. Like does the gun function? Does that take out some of what we think of, the common iconography of the genre? Because we seem to think of it like, oh, it's like it's a distance. It's like one shot and you're done, and we sort of like put that in the action genre, right? But
it takes away from the idea of the bad death.
The bad death, right? Yeah. But so here, I think I think these are good counter arguments for like, oh yeah, I could be just as scared, being hunted with a gun. That doesn't have to be the knife, but yeah, that's an eye opener for me.
I mean, I think that's really interesting. I don't know. I guess I need to hear more about the bad death, because to me, I mean, The Hunt, there are guns, there are lots of guns, but there are also lots of explosions and limbs and knives and all kinds of crazy things that people will do to one another for their beliefs, right? Like beyond just the guns. It's not. I guess I get your point. Like, how do I characterize this movie against Rambo?
Right.
Rambo's not scared, I guess.
Tommy, did you want to talk about the good death versus bad death?
Well, good death versus bad death, I think at some point in a lot of horror movies, it's the idea of dying no longer becomes the real scary thing. It's that dying becomes, for lack of a better phrase, actually a relief. Because, and there are certain movies that really, of course, torture porn, of course, Terrifier 3 is out right now.
Yeah.
Terrifier 3, Art the Clown. I've never seen any of those movies, but a friend of mine has been working through them. And they're known for being incredibly gory, and people live for forever. Like just being tortured, killed. But apparently Art also has a 45. Every once in a while, he'll just shoot someone in the head. And I think that's hysterical. That's gross for me to say hysterical, but like, what is that movie about? It's so weird.
Why is that movie not called Clown with a Gun? Because that's scary.
Exactly. No, I mean, there's just a lot of movies that talk, especially horror movies. I mean, there's certain movies that become known for the ultimate bad death. Like I just rewatched Bone Tomahawk recently, the Kurt Russell horror / zombie / western, which has one of the worst deaths ever possible that I've ever seen before. And it's sort of known for that, even though it's extremely elegant film. So, no, guns are definitely, I don't think they're seen as scary anymore because of what Kynan just said. The original idea of a good death came from the Civil War, actually, but that's for a different podcast.
Well, I thought it was a fascinating little romp down mano a mano lane, and I enjoyed getting.
And I
these
really
movies.
respect the choices that you made, Kyle, because when I brought up that you were doing this, everyone was like, people would be like, "Oh, Judgment Night," and I was like, "No, you didn't pick that one." Surviving the Game, and I was like, "No, there's really no rappers in this one." And he was like, "Well, what did he pick?" And I said, "Get Duped." And they were like, "Is Kyle mad at you?" No. but like you really went off the beaten path in a wonderful way, and so I'm very
Wonderful way.
happy for that.
Yeah. So one of my favorite quotes from Terry Pratchett is when Granny Weatherwax, which was like sort of the greatest witch of her age, but in a very Terry Pratchett kind of way, is debating with a priest, and they're talking about, he's like, oh yeah, because of the first sin. And he was like, "Oh yeah, breaking breaking the rules." And she's like, "No, the first sin is thinking of people as things. Every terrible thing in history has started with thinking of other people as things."
Mm.
And so I always think about that with this, because all we have here are the rich versus the poor. They don't think of them as people. They think of them as pawns, as playthings, as sacrifices, as tithes, whatever it is. And so we have that dehumanization, even though one of the people turned out not to be a human. But you have that element of it through all of these things of like, it's not the mano a mano thing of, none of these stories are mano a mano. They're all from the perspective of somebody who thinks they're superior, hunting someone they think is inferior and making a game of it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
When you listen to futurists right now, they're predicting. I'm not a vegetarian. I wish I was. I mean, I wish I was moral enough not to kill animals, for my own food. But when you listen to futurists, they're like, within maybe not our time, but the next group of people's time, we won't be eating animals anymore. And just with that, we'll look back and think of like factory farming as incredibly barbaric, right? And that's something that I think that a lot of us are afraid to really think about and look into, of why one animal deserves life and another animal doesn't. Like, I don't want to think about it because I got to go eat dinner after this,
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so our next series, I think, is going to be all factory farming movies.
That's right. Food Inc. will be our first one.
And then Soylent Green.
Yeah.
And just how stuff's made, that Canadian documentary series. Yeah. Show you all that.
Food Inc.
Oh my God.
Just supersize me. Oh, you keep going. All right. So there we go. So we've been through the most dangerous game. We have all survived, and it was great. So thank you for coming along on this journey,
Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle. Nice work.
I'm glad I got 1 out of 3, so I'll take that.
All right. So that brings us to next month's educator, which is Tom.
It's me. It's my big break. Okay, so I was looking at different horror movies, and I realized a lot of the ones that I like a lot, let's say It, parts of It too, The Black Phone, they all have to do with like growing pains or like coming of age movies. Isn't It Scared? Poltergeist was the first movie that ever gave me nightmares. And so much of it is about childhood fears and being scared. In Skinamarink, I made you guys do a whole episode about that goddamn movie. And so I thought I would change things up and instead talk about the horrors of being an adult. I'm calling it Okay, Boomer. Putting the boo in boomer. It's
okay, Boomer.
Yes. We have 3 movies in no particular order. We have, and I've mentioned this one before, I don't think anyone's seen it, I could be wrong, Vivarium, directed by Logan Finnegan. It is about the horrors of moving to the suburbs and having a family. Then I have The Belko Experiment, directed by Craig McLean. That is about the horrors of corporate America. And then finally, and by the way, Vivarium and... Oh, no, never mind. And then the third one is a controversial choice because this movie is not defined as a horror movie, and yet I find it to be one of the scariest psychological horror movies of its year. We'll see what you guys think. It is The Father.
Mm-hmm.
The Horror of Getting Older. Anthony Hopkins and Olivia Colman. Directed by Florian Zeller. I think it is the scariest non-horror horror movie that I've seen in a long time, and it's gonna be a downer. So those are the 3, and just because I want to, Vivarium and The Father both have Imogen Poots. You're getting double Poots, boy.
Poots yes.
Yeah, so it's those 3. Okay, Boomer. We'll see if you guys share any of the existential fears of getting older that I do, and how these movies explore them. And I look forward to it, gentlemen.
Great.
Out. Outstanding. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for doing this. What day of the week is Halloween? Do we wish people happy Halloween or no? As you hear this, Halloween is coming up, so may you have a scary Halloween. Please don't hunt your fellow humans. That's not the point. They're just movies. You're the best. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out, downloading, and listening to this show. We appreciate your time and your attention. On behalf of the whole class, Kynan Diaz, Tommy Metz III, and our esteemed educator today, Kyle Olson. I'm Pete Wright. We'll see you next week right here. Next month. We'll see you next time. It'll be next time. We'll see you next time right here, sitting in the dark.
Hey, Pete, have you ever been fascinated by the allure of secret societies throughout history?
Are you kidding me right now, Andy? I live for this stuff. From the Freemasons to the Illuminati, I am obsessed with these clandestine groups. The Rosicrucians and their ancient wisdom, the Skull and Bones Society at Yale with its powerful alumni network. I'm drawn to them. There's something about how they offer this exclusive access to hidden knowledge. They totally capture my imagination. It's like they give this sense of belonging to something greater than oneself.
Wow, sounds like you're looking for one yourself.
Do you even need to ask? Where do I sign? How much blood do I have to give? Are there any required tattoos or brands involved? Is it my first or second born that they need?
Well, what if I told you that there's a secret society for film lovers right here at the Next Reel family of film podcasts, all proud members of the True Story FM network, and you don't have to give any blood or either of your kids?
You've got my attention, Andy. What can you tell me about this cinematic brotherhood?
When you become a member of the Next Reel family, you gain access to a treasure trove of exclusive content, early episode releases, and a community of passionate film enthusiasts who share your love for movies. It's like being initiated into a secret order where you're privy to the inner workings of our shows, including the Next Reel, the Film Board, Movies We Like, Sitting in the Dark, and CinemaScope.
But Andy, as a member, will I unlock a world of bonus content from extended conversations and behind-the-scenes insights to exclusive pre-show and post-show discussions that expand the conversations about the films we love?
Why, yes, the true power of this secret society lies in its community. As a member, you'll join an exclusive group within our Discord community where you can engage in clandestine conversations with other passionate film fans in our members-only channels.
But what about live recordings, Andy? The sacred rituals of any good cinematic order. Will these episodes be scheduled in advance so that members like me will know when to gather around the virtual pyre in real time via YouTube?
Ah, yes. Perhaps the greatest secret of all is that by becoming a member, you're not just investing in your own entertainment, you're also supporting the tireless work of our independent creators and helping to keep the magic of cinema alive and well. So if you're ready to join this elite group of film lovers and unlock the secrets of cinema, head over to truestory.fm/join. For just $5 a month or $55 a year, you will gain access to a world of exclusive content, engaging discussions, and a community that shares your passion for movies. Head to truestory.fm/join to sign up.
Andy, I can't wait for you to welcome me into the inner circle of the Next Reel family of film podcasts. I'll see you in the secret chambers. Now, when do I get my ring?
Well, we don't actually offer rings with your membership.
Tattoos or brands? When can I do that?
No tattoos.
Secret handshakes?
Tell you what, you and I can come up with our own secret handshake, okay?
No, I mean, at the very least. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reels logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way.